So at the time of this recording in mid-February 2024, we're about a month or so away from a spring Apple event or press release. We're expecting a few new products, but of course I'm most excited about our new iPad Pros. So I wanted to go over what to expect based on the more credible rumors that have come up over the last 2 years or so. And also talk about a couple of long shot ideas that I'm not really expecting to see, but would be great if Apple decided to do them. So let's go ahead and get started. Look for the iPad Pro to keep its current 2-size configuration, but expect both screens to get a little bit bigger. The 11-inch model should grow to 11.1 inches, and the 12.9-inch model should grow to 13.1 inches. Now those are pretty small screen size changes, and what's kind of exciting about that is that it means it's possible that Apple might keep the dimensions of the iPads the same and just reduce the bezels to get us those bigger screens. Shrinking bezels on a tablet is actually kind of tricky because you need somewhere to hold it, and I've had mixed results with palm rejection myself, but I'm choosing to trust Apple's judgment here if that's the way they go. We're expecting the iPad Pro to get an OLED display, and this time both models should be receiving the better screen. As you know, the 11-inch model never made the jump to mini LED like the 12.9-inch model. Now, I haven't used both iPad Pros, and I can tell you for productivity work, you don't really notice a difference between the two. But if you're someone that does a lot of gaming or video watching, I can imagine the mini LED screen on the 12.9-inch model has been leagues ahead of everything else in the iPad lineup, since everything else is using standard LCDs. The mini LED display, which is now also in the MacBook Pro, gives you a greater brightness, greater contrast ratio, and deeper blacks, but not to the level that an OLED display will. But there's more to switching to OLED than deeper blacks and higher contrast ratio. We also may see an expansion in the range of refresh rates that are supported. Now, this is a little tricky to figure out, but it looks like the current iPad Pro's refresh rates only go down to about 10 Hz at their lowest, which means they refresh 10 times every second. On the newer iPhone Pros, they have OLED screens that can go as slow as 1 Hz, so it refreshes 1 time every second, which means the display is just kind of sipping power instead of drawing more power like it normally does. That 1 Hz refresh rate is what powers features on the iPhone like the always-on display and the new standby feature, both of which would work magnificently on an iPad screen. Both of these features would be much more powerful on the larger iPad display, plus it would allow Apple to match the key selling point of Google's Pixel tablet. We're expecting to see the new iPad Pros get upgraded to the new M3 chip. Based on what we saw in the MacBook Pros, I would anticipate about a 20% performance improvement over the M2, as well as a sizable graphics improvement. I would expect to see some of the ray tracing improvements we saw on the iPhone Pro also make its way to iPad Pro. The M3 chip is built on a 3nm process, which means compared to the M2, it's smaller, faster, and more efficient. Now, Apple could use that increased efficiency in 2 different ways. One, we may see better battery life. Now, I don't expect Apple to change its 10-hour target it has for iPads, because given the dimensions of the iPad and its thermal profile, we're never going to see the same kind of battery life we see on the MacBook Pros. Just not going to happen. However, for those of us who do more intensive work on our iPads, we know that it's kind of hard to hit that 10-hour limit. If I'm doing things like editing videos or recording music, it's closer to 4 or 5 hours. It's possible the M3 chip just helps us get closer to that 10-hour goal in more real-world scenarios. The second way they may use this increased efficiency is to make the devices thinner and lighter. Now, even with all the complaining I just did about battery life, this is actually the option I want them to take. I don't think the current models are thick by any stretch of the imagination, but my definition of Apple-like is thinner, lighter, faster. This is what they do best when they're firing on all cylinders. And so I would love to see these things get thinner and lighter in addition to being faster. There was a report that in the iPadOS 17.4 beta, there is language suggesting that Apple will indeed be relocating the front-facing camera from the top to the side of the iPad. And this is the one thing that will actually justify the upgrade for me. Not because I do a lot of video calls, I actually don't take that many. It's really more for working in a landscape. Especially on the bigger iPad Pro, I find my hand not only covers that camera, but it also covers the ambient light sensor, which means the screen starts to dim, and that's just really annoying. So I am all in if they're ready to finally move that camera to the side of the iPad. Let's do it. It seems like, along with the redesign of the iPad Pro, we're also going to see a redesign of the Magic Keyboard accessory. The rumors are suggesting that it's going to be more laptop-like, and that it's also going to use an aluminum top case and have a bigger trackpad. I would also expect to see a function row on the Magic Keyboard as well. And not just because it's on the Magic Keyboard Folio, although that's a good indication they're going to do it right there, but because whoever at Apple decided in the mid-2010s that no one uses the function row is clearly no longer there. That's the kind of mindset that got us the Touch Bar on the MacBook Pros that I liked, but apparently no one else did. Now, I've never thought the Apple Pencil was something that needed to be upgraded every year, but after 5 years, I'd say we're a bit overdue for a new high-end model. Now that's after last year where we got a low-end kind of refresh with a USB-C Apple Pencil. The first review I've done on this channel was of that pencil. I will put a link in the description if you haven't seen it yet. The rumors about the Apple Pencil 3 have been kind of few and far between. The most consistent rumor I've seen is that it will include magnetically interchangeable tips, which would be kind of interesting to see. But there were also some kind of scattershot rumors about a shorter Apple Pencil. Maybe that would work with the iPhone, or a model that comes in black. I'm not expecting to see either one of those, but I think they have a good chance on the interchangeable tips. This next couple things I'm going to go over are kind of long shots. I'm not really expecting to see them at the spring event, but I'd love to be surprised, or even to see these happen later this year. A few months ago, Bloomberg's Mark Gurman reported that Apple was actually pretty close to shipping a 14-inch iPad Pro, but they decided to not ship it for whatever reason. And that's a really interesting model to me because for doing more intensive work, I feel like a 13-inch screen is kind of the bare minimum to be able to really kind of dig into your work. And so Apple making a larger than 13-inch iPad Pro would be very welcome. 14, 15, 16 inches, I'm game for all of it. I'm hoping this is something they revisit, but with everything else they have going on this year to clean up the iPad lineup, they may not want to add another screen size. But who knows, maybe next year. There was this one odd kind of one-off rumor that Apple was working on a version of Mac OS X that would run on the M2 iPad Pros. Now, I'm not one of these people that's wishing for Apple to put Mac OS on the iPad. I get plenty of work done just with iPad OS, but I come back to the idea of Apple maybe letting users run Mac OS in a virtual machine. But from a user's perspective, they would just be downloading another app from the App Store. It'd be macOS.app. You download it, and then you launch it, and it runs a macOS VM. It could be completely self-contained. I'm sure Apple would put some kind of limitations on it for reasons, but that would be interesting to see. Even if it's not something I'm personally looking for, it would be kind of crazy if they did that. Maybe it only works when you have a pointing device and a keyboard attached. Maybe it has some other limitations Apple wants to put on it, who knows? But I think they could do something like that, and it wouldn't compromise the core experience of iPad. So I'm super excited about whatever Apple's going to launch in the next month or so. But let me know in the comments what, if anything, you're excited about regarding these new iPad Pros. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you. If you could like the video and subscribe to the channel on the way out, that would help me and the channel out a bunch. And with that, I'll see you in the next one.